A second impeachment complaint has been filed against Vice President Sara Duterte. Alyansang Makabayan led more than 70 groups in filing the second impeachment complaint at the House of Representatives. Unlike the first complaint filed by Akbayan, which had 4 grounds and 24 articles, Makabayan's was based off one ground: betrayal of public trust, with 3 reasons. First is gross abuse of discretionary powers when she allegedly spent 612 million pesos in confidential funds from 2022 to 2023. Next is gross disregard of transparency and making a mockery of the audit process. And finally, refusal to acknowledge Congress's power of oversight in the conduct of budget deliberations and investigations in aid of legislation. 3 Makabayan bloc congressmen endorsed the complaint. Despite worries about timing and President Bongbong Marcos himself appealing to dissuade lawmakers from focusing on the Vice President's impeachment, they still hope Congress will remain independent.
This impeachment complaint is a challenge to Congress to show its independence, to show that it can stand on the side of the people kahit ang presidente iba pa ang sinasabi at pinapanawagan.
Umaapila kami sa mga miyembro ng mababang kapulungan na bumoto ayon sa kanilang konsyensya. Hindi ayon sa kanilang partido, kung hindi ayon sa pag-weigh nila sa kung ano ba ang tama at o mali sa ating bayan.
We actually have the legal counsel of Alyansang Makabayan with us, Attorney Neri Colmenares. Denise and I were just saying, well, isang ground nga lang, no, itong second impeachment complaint, which is betrayal of public trust. Kasi sabi nga nila, para mas mabilis, maybe you would like to expound on that, sir.
Yes, well, we are realistic here. There are time constraints, so we thought if we just issue it on, we just base it on one ground, which is betrayal of public trust, which is the overarching, it encompasses all grounds actually of the impeachment. So it's easier for the House members to decide to whether to endorse it or not to endorse it. And secondly, if it goes to trial, it's easier for the Senate to really decide on the issue too. And maybe if the trial is in say January, in 1 month's time, I think the Senate can easily decide whether or not to convict or acquit on the basis of the betrayal of public trust. And secondly, the main issue we just focus on is confidential funds, which is actually the strongest of the issues. Of course, the others are strong as well, but that will entail some time for the Senate to resolve. So that's why we chose it. Just a simple thing. I was a prosecutor in the Corona impeachment complaint, and one of the things that really we encountered, we had 8 grounds, 8 acts. We had 3 grounds: culpable violation of the Constitution, graft and corruption, betrayal of public trust. And it really was too difficult for us. That's why it went on for more than 4 months. But if it's just one ground and just 3 acts, no longer 8 or 10, then I think we can get it by, say, 1 month. We will be able to make it in the Senate trial.
Sir, 75 groups have supported the impeachment complaint. Since September, Makabayan has been announcing their intent to file an impeachment versus VP Sara. And you cited an example, yun pong kay Corona, 4 months for 8 grounds. Bakit po ngayon lang, if alam niyo po na pwede siyang tumagal, and why file separately from Akbayan?
Actually, we didn't know about the Akbayan complaint, actually, because they drafted it. So it would have been good if there would be a joint effort among all groups. But we didn't know about that. But anyway, we were also drafting our complaint. And then, so now that it's filed, I guess the more the merrier here. So if more groups can file, because the rule is, as long as the plenary has not referred it to the Justice Committee, there are other complaints can still be filed if they want to. It will still be entertained by the House, of course, under the rules. So the reason for the length of time is we've been hearing the Senate, the committee hearings, and there were like 7 or 8 committee hearings, and the transcripts are just so voluminous. And the lawyers there said, we really need the official transcripts. We need to prepare. medyo very strict yung requirements ng mga lawyers. So that's why it took us some time to really prepare it essentially. So yeah, I guess yeah, there are different ways of doing this, and one of the things that we did was to really look at this committee hearings up to what time? Oh my God, it's midnight sometimes, right? So and then the transcripts are just hundreds of pages of transcripts. So it took us some time to really formulate the impeachment ground.
Sir, Sir, at some point, no, the impeachment complaints will be consolidated. Can you walk us through the whole process? And will it be up to the House Justice Committee to do this, or will the complainants have a say on what the grounds and articles of the impeachment will be included?
It's of course up to the House. We can argue, we can give our opinions, but in the end, they decide. So there are two ways of going about it. The first is, of course, it gets one third from the House members endorsing the complaint. Then the articles of impeachment go straight to the Senate. That's what happened. For example, I think it happened in the era of impeachment complaint. The one third was immediately gathered, and then it didn't went through the Justice Committee. The second is the House refers it to the Justice Committee, in which case there will be a hearing. A hearing, of course, where the complainants are there, and then there's of course, if the committee would like to ask, for example, the Vice President to comment, and so on. So there will be, according to the rules, 60 days, 60 session days. It will take. They have a maximum of that at least. But of course, if they decide in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then that's the option of the Senate committee. But at any time, the Senate, the House Committee on Justice will decide on the complaints, whether or not they're going to dismiss the complaints, or there are two complaints right now that the Justice Committee can entertain. Whether they're going to dismiss the complaints or approve the complaints, it has to go back to the plenary, and one third of the plenary can overturn the decision of the committee. So, for example, if the committee decides to dismiss the impeachment complaint, and then one third can overrule that, or the reverse can also happen. So that's the way it will go. So I don't know. So it's a matter either of a few days or of a few weeks, depending on the leadership and, of course, the members of the House of Representatives.
Sir, there was a text message that went viral, no, from Pangulong Bongbong Marcos. So we would just like to get your reaction to his pronouncement that pushing through with the impeachment now will be counterproductive and basically just a waste of time.
Well, that's the opinion. If that was true, that's the opinion of the president. The trial has not started. The Senate and the House members have not seen the impeachment complaint and the evidence. I'm sure whether or not it's going to gain traction, it depends on the evidence. If they think that for example, if the Senate are convinced that indeed 125 million pesos splurged in just 11 days, that's too much. If the Senate thinks that's really impeachable, then the Senate can decide right there and then. Very easy. There are analyses on how a senator will vote. For me, it's too premature. I mean, there are senators who we think, oh, that one, that they will vote against it on political considerations and so on, electoral considerations. Well, that's what the complainants and the people's organizations who submitted the complaint are asking the senators and even the House members. You decide according to your conscience, decide according to the rules on the principles of accountability, and decide according to your duty to country. Members of Congress, both the Senate and the House, are supposed to be the guardians of public funds. The Senate and the House passed the budget. They gave it to the one, of course, to the Vice President, and the Vice President cannot account for it. Isn't it the duty of the Senate and the House to make sure that doesn't happen? So for me, if even if the president thinks, oh, we will not get the votes in the Senate, that's a political consideration probably. But we are asking the senators to decide on the basis of the merits of the case, look at the evidence, and of course, the interest of the Filipino people.
Now, if in case the complaint breezes through Congress, do you think you have the numbers at the Senate?
I would like to think so, because I would like to think that the senators would like to guard public funds with all their might. And here is a clear example of public funds wasted or misused. Can you imagine that you're going to spend millions of pesos and sign it with a Mary Grace Piatos? I mean, if the Senate will find nothing impeachable or wrong with that, then we're in a very tight fix, because the Senate will now say, oh, well, we're going to give budget to people. They don't need to sign it. They can use fake names. It's all right with us. That's really terrible, right? So, in my opinion, if the senators are shown the evidence, I don't think political consideration should be their primordial concern. For me, the interest of the Filipino people, the interest of public funds, is the main concern of senators and any legislator for that matter. So yeah, I guess we're optimistic because if we show the evidence, the senators will vote in favor of conviction, if only they will use, of course, the principles of accountability and, of course, their conscience and their duties.